Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 230 of the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. We have a wonderful guest, Spojmie Nasiri, the cover of the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine, issue number 4, here to talk about her practice and her experience with the Afghan humanitarian crisis that happened since the pullout. Obviously, we have another humanitarian crisis, a new one with Ukraine. We'll have that in the next issue coming up, but I guess one crisis at a time. We'll talk about this one and how she's been dealing with it and what options there are, and just learn about her practice and her years of experience. Before going into it, I want to remind everybody that you get access. It's free. It's an online magazine to the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine by going to immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com/magazine, and you could get it there, download it. You can download PDF and enjoy it. I want to thank the sponsors, in particular, DocuWise, who's always been supportive of the podcast and the magazine. DocuWise is an all-in-one form system, customer service management, all that kind of stuff, all in one. They do great service, and they're really adaptive and always getting the newest things there and really listening to people who are users to adapt to what they need. You can get 10% off your annual plan by going to DocuWise.com/immigration-lawyers-podcast and using the code Immigration Lawyers Podcast for that. So I want to thank them. A couple other notes. We have a colleague in Alabama who's selling his practice. If you're interested in that, send me an email. I can connect you with that. It's an immigration practice, small firm. Small for immigration. He's got a couple lawyers, so it's not too small. But if you're interested in purchasing your practice in the South, let me know and we'll connect you. I also want to give a shout out to our colleague, Nadine. I was call her Nadine, actually. Nadine Atkinson Flowers, who's an immigration lawyer, but also a criminal courts attorney in Jamaica. She just published a book called On Your Feet, Criminal Law Practice in the Parish Courts in Jamaica. And so if you need criminal stuff in Jamaica, you need police certificates and the like, it's a great colleague to reach out to. I also want to thank Argo. Argo is a former consular officer, Mandy Fearbacker. She's been on the show, and her colleagues as well, who help people prepare for their visa interviews. I've had, and this is not a paid sponsorship. They're going to be a sponsor, but this is just putting out there. I had 2 cases where they interviewed and helped the clients really calm down before the interview. So it's really nice. I wanted to give her a shout out. Argo.com, I think, is the website. So with that, let's jump into it. Spojmie, John, nice to meet you and see you. We're going to be audio, so everyone's going to see the audio. But Spojmie, nice to meet you.
Thank you very much, John, for having me, and thank you for giving a voice to this cause.
You're welcome. Thank you for all the work you're doing. We see each other by email and stuff on the listers and various places, like for years it seems, but I'm glad we got to talk. So, for people to get to know more about you, could you talk about where you're from originally, how you got to immigration law, where your practice is, and that kind of stuff?
So I was originally born in Afghanistan, and I migrated to the U.S. as an Afghan refugee from, due to the Soviet war in the 1980s, early 1980s. I came to the Bay Area in California, Northern California. I've spent my whole life here, went to undergrad law school, and my practice is here in Pleasanton, California. I practice primarily immigration law, and I've been practicing since 2011.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And any particular parts of immigration law do you do or don't do?
So I do mostly I do deportation defense work, and I do family-based consular processing, 601, 601As. I do quite a bit of U visas, VAWAs, and some T visas.
Oh, wow. Okay. So hardcore stuff, all the stuff I don't do, removal and
and I don't do employment-based. So
we have the opposite practice, probably some overlap in the marriage-based kind of stuff, but it's always good to connect with people on these other things. And obviously you're a great person to send stuff to if you're handling cases in San Francisco, because you're in that area, especially for removal. So I guess we'll just jump into what is the situation right now. We're recording this on March 4th, I think, 2022. Has there been developments in what's happened to Afghans who came? And one thing is, I get emails from people or people put comments on my TikTok and YouTube pages saying, my loved one came and they're one of these camps right now, these military bases. What do they do next? What's happening? Do they get green cards or work permits? What is the status of those people?
So, up to date, with the August fall of Kabul to the Taliban, there has been an estimate, and I'm getting different numbers, but what it stands at right now is about 83,000 Afghan refugees were paroled in. And the parolee status initially didn't allow them to get the benefits, of the refugee status. So what happened was they were paroled in, and then, a lot of advocates fought for it and were able to get parolee benefits for them, the 3-month resettlement, and then some more benefits to the federal, like similar to asylum. in the last 6 months or so, all of 83,000 or so have been resettled throughout the United States. A lot of them seeking California, Texas, Virginia, DC area, and they were over inundated. So the last pack of individuals left Fort Dix in New Jersey about around February 15. And they were, resettled in Airbnbs, hotels, and whatnot, whatever they could. So currently they have what's called the parolee status for 2 years. And for those who are eligible for asylum, which is going to be a bulk of them, either because they're not primarily eligible for the special immigrant visa, the SIV visas, or they're not able to meet the requirements. So the fallback would be an asylum application. So there's someone gave an estimate of maybe 60% of those would be filing for asylum. And the issue right now is about providing pro bono services for everyone. I just got off a call right now with a large alliance and large law firms who are going to be working together to get pro bono attorneys and be able to take these massive cases. On the side note, the legislative advocacy group nationally has, along with the vet groups, have been fighting to try to get the Afghan Adjustment Act, referred to as the AAA, and trying to get some Republicans on band to be able to support this. And we have till March 11th, I believe, to be able to get Republicans to pick up on this and endorse it. One of the questions you asked early on is, we got, thankfully, TPS for Ukrainians, and my Afghans don't have it. The argument has been on those who are fighting on the forefront is that if we get the TPS would, and there's been discrepancies in different groups I've been, is whether we're trying to get the TPS for either the 2,000 Afghans that were here on some sort of status and needed, or as a whole, the parolees. And the tactic has been, let's try to push for the Afghan Adjustment Act and then push for TPS. So many people have been saying, well, why are Afghans not getting TPS, but Ukrainians got it? And there is some elements to what we're seeing, the rhetoric, the racist, double standard that we're hearing. But in this particular instance, it's because of the strategic move to get AAA passed.
And, TPS, now I'm thinking about it, and we had to talk offline about this, it's temporary. But if the Taliban is the government there, then TPS is never going to end. So you might as well give adjustment or something like that. Whereas in the war in Ukraine, ideally it's an end, and normalcy will come, and a some sort of democratic republic government is going to come. But it's not going to be temporary, because that the group that's leading there is the government, and it's not going to change. So this temporary TPS would be a false thing, because it's not going to be temporary. It's going to be forever, essentially.
Right, and the rhetoric against the AAA Act is that apparently some portion of the Afghan population do not qualify for SIV because they had no connection to that. And so there's been a lot of push and a lot of talking points in terms of how to advocate for the Afghan Adjustment Act, similar to the Cuban Adjustment Act that had been done. The most logical sense would be to have the AAA Act, because you can't send these Afghans back.
Yeah.
And TPS would just continue. And the other question is, a large portion of these individuals are illiterate in the sense they can read in Pashto, Dari, English, and majority of them don't speak English. So I think sometimes I hear people say, well, they're translators, so they almost speak English. But that's absolutely not the case. Having been to 7 of the 8 military bases, it's a wide range of people. You see people from the primitive village areas where they worked with the U.S. military in certain regions, but were not utilized in terms of the language skills. So they don't speak English. Even when I'm talking in Pashto or Dari with them, they would say, I understand what you're saying, but I have no idea what you're saying, if that makes sense. So the Afghan Adjustment Act would be a way to just give them permanent pathway. So if you do TPS, somebody's got to go and renew that every few years.
Yeah,
right now we have a backlog of 450,000 asylum cases. How is that realistically going to pan out?
Yeah, you're in San Francisco. You said you handle asylum cases. Is that part of your firm?
I'm sorry, what kind of cases?
You're in Northern California. You submit asylum cases. Is that part of the?
I did do asylum. Right now I'm over inundated with the other cases I'm working on, so I'm very limited with asylum cases.
Do you have any idea of timelines right now in Northern California? Because Southern California, it's we have cases 6, 7 years pending asylum. I don't do asylum, but I get the calls on it. But then again, we have cases where I see cases where people file it and they get their appointment 3 months later. So it's all over the book. But if we just add this boatload of Afghan asylum cases, this is going to like destroy the asylum in system in California. I mean, that's just too much for them to bear. So having a complete separate system is the only thing that makes logical sense in any way. This AAA Act makes only
Yeah,
only
and
sense.
in the right, and in the Afghan cases, they have said that they're setting up a separate unit to expedite it within 100 certain days. I don't remember if it's 150 or 160 days, and I don't know how feasible that is. But having said that, there was a case out of the Boston office where a gentleman had applied for asylum. He was one of the parolees, and his two brothers had been SIV holders, and he worked in some capacity with the U.S. government, and he got an NOID, notice of intent to deny. So if you're getting cases like that, how is everyone else going to be able to? And then another decision that came out. One of the biggest fears we're seeing is, as Afghans are getting off, they're realizing, okay, I have 1 year from the date I arrived, which is August, September, October, November, whatever they came in, they must apply for asylum within 1 year. Just today, I was talking to a non-attorney who had the good intention, said, well, let's just get the asylum cases in so meet the deadline. And I'm like, no, you must have a very adequate asylum case. I'd rather they wait close to the deadline and file an adequate rather than just for the sake of filing, because that becomes part of the record. That's going to be possibly inconsistent and hurt them in the long run.
Yeah. What a extremely messy situation. And it says some of these people are maybe from the farmlands or something. They get plucked out of there to America, a completely different culture, a completely different language. What a hard time to adjust. I've had friends who were Afghans who fled, again, their Soviet times, they went to Pakistan, and they came here 20, 30 years ago. They've adjusted really well, but a lot of them in DC area in particular. But it's just it must be so difficult for these people. What a wild life to have.
Yeah, and the biggest challenge right now, a lot of them they're in Airbnbs and they're in hotels. I know there's like about 300 families, for example, in Northern California in Modesto, in the middle of like rural area, and they're just in hotels. So right now they're barely trying to figure out how are they going to live, where are they going to live, and a large number of these Afghans have anywhere between 4 to 11 children, and some of them have been put in hotels with 1 bedroom, the full family. So
Wow.
right now, what's on the back of their mind is where I'm going to live, how I'm going to live, what's going to happen, and then the legal stuff. There was a lot of the bases didn't have access to legal services for everybody. So, for example, at Fort Dix, which had like up to, I think, 15, 16,000, I would say about 13, 14,000 didn't have any access to legal services because they were very in control and didn't allow those services. So when me and a couple of other attorneys went to Fort Dix in the second week of February, there's only like 1,800 people left. And so we gave them services. So now you're imagining 15,000 people from one base that had like no access to legal services. They think the work permit is the green card.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be a lot of challenges in so many capacities.
So the lack of planning with regard to the ending of the war continues. It's not in the headlines anymore, but the disaster both there and here it continues. Wow.
Well, you have to also keep in mind that the Trump administration pretty much shrunk the budget for resettlement agencies.
That's true, yeah.
There were a lot of them on the brink of closing with no staff. And then you have the perfect storm and you bring in 80,000 plus Afghans. Keep in mind, we were just told the other day that there's another 20,000 Afghans that are on the lily pads that need to be brought in. They're estimating to bring in 2,000 a month up until September 2022. They are no longer going to the safe havens, which were the military bases. In the article that I talked about, they're going to a conference center somewhere in Virginia that they've contracted with to be able to move them in. But the resettlement agencies are over inundated. A lot of them don't have the legal services and they're just barely keeping up. I just heard a really sad story and she said she didn't want it to be in the media, but I was so heartbroken. One of the individuals, I guess it was in Missouri, I believe, the resettlement caseworker wasn't able to get to her in time. She went into labor and the baby died.
Oh my God.
So in the hotel room.
Oh my God.
Because she didn't know how to use 911. And the caseworker said they were busy, didn't get through. So I'm not pointing fingers by any means to anyone. I'm just giving you the facts of the situation.
It's a disaster. Wow. So, I mean, if lawyers are listening and want to get involved in this kind of pro bono stuff, is there an email or something that's set up to start collecting this, volunteers and stuff like that?
So Ayla has been on the forefront of trying to get volunteer attorneys. I know Ayla is working with Pars Equality Center. And then today there was Allegiance and some other Dunn's law firm, I believe. I can get more information, but I think the main thing would be Ayla has been continuously on the forefront. There's an Ayla Afghan task force, which I'm a part of, along with my esteemed colleagues like Masa, Margaret Stoke, Parastu Zahiri, and others who are part of this task force, trying to ask. So if anyone is interested, even if you haven't done asylum cases, there's going to be plenty of tools and guidance to be able to provide services. So if you are interested, I would highly recommend going to the Afghan page on AILA website, and there are pro bono opportunities. Even if you could take a couple of cases, one case is better than none.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who are newer attorneys just graduating law school. I mean, you have support here. You could get to know the asylum process and help. And I mean, a lot of these cases are winnable. It's because the facts are there. So it's a good case to take on. It's just a matter of doing it properly, interviewing people, and representing to the fullest. So it's a great opportunity to build your experience and really help somebody. Spojmie, thank you so much. If people wanted to contact you, reach out, what's the best way people could follow you? If you have social media, all that kind of stuff.
So the best way to contact me is spojmie@nasirilaw.com. I do have LinkedIn as well as Instagram and a Facebook law office of Spojmie Nasiri. John, I wanted to sincerely thank you, not only on behalf of being an Afghan American, but just being someone who's passionate and being an immigrant ourselves and being able to give back to the community from the same places we came from. And I wholeheartedly thank you for the opportunity and the article, and you giving a voice, because these are the platforms that will continue to spotlight the issues that we're having. Because as one disaster is going, like you said early on, the next one is coming and the rest is forgotten. So sincere gratitude and thank you to you from the bottom of my heart.
You're welcome. Thank you. And keep me posted on all these kind of opportunities, things, notes and stuff. We'll put it in the magazine and we'll mention the podcast over and over again. So keep collecting people that could hear about it and could jump in to help out. Anything, just let me know. We'll post it on and get it out there any way I can.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Welcome. So stay on the line. Thank you again. So everybody, if you want to read the article, visit the magazine at immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com/magazine. You'll see Spojmie on the cover. Spojmie spelled SPOJM as in Mary, IE. And she's doing wonderful work, and it's just we need help on this kind of stuff. So definitely jump in there. Much appreciated again, Spojmie, for coming on, and hopefully we'll be on the show again and better kind of stuff to talk about, more happier kind of stuff.
Thank you.